I'm so excited for today's video. Make Beauty sent over their new eyeshadows and eyeshadow brushes, and I'm going to swatch them all. I'm gonna review them. I'm gonna do a try on of all of them on my eyes, so pray for my eyes. And let's just get right into it. I've already swatched these over on Instagram. I've shared some initial thoughts, and I have worn one of the shades on my eyes, but I haven't done a full review. So I'm excited to get into the nitty gritty. If it's your first time here, then hi, my name is Becca. I love Make Beauty. I have a couple of brand reviews basically reviewing almost everything that they've ever released. So I'll link those videos below in case you're curious. So let me give you a closer look at everything. I just have to say, I have been waiting for Make Beauty to do like a single one and done eyeshadow for a long time. They do have their eye shaping stilos, which are matte like eye crayons, but these are pigmented. They are colorful, they're metallic, they're textured, they're stunning. So there are 12 shades. They sent over 6 of the shades, and there are 2 eye brushes. The compacts from Make Beauty are always stunning. So this is a white sort of enamel with a gold bottom. These are $24 each. Each compact comes with a mirror, and each shade is speckled. So you can see there are different textures and colors and a mix of different finishes within each single shadow. I think these are also a magnetic palette. I'm assuming they do all refillable systems, so I'm assuming you can buy the refills separately from the compact if you ever run out of one of these eyeshadows. They're actually really big. This is 4 grams. So this is the shade Onyx. So beautiful. Onyx is described as a slate color. This is the shade Quartz, which I absolutely love. I've already worn it. I wore it yesterday, actually. And Quartz is described as a taupe. This is the shade Blaze, which is described as a bronze. This is Glaze, which is described as a champagne. This is Purple Haze, which is described as a red purple. And lastly, this is Stardust, which is described as an emerald. And you can see in each of these pans, I swatched in a little corner so I didn't mess up the entire surface of the pan, but you can see where I press it in or where I've swatched it, the shades kind of melt together. This is their all over shadow brush. So it's pinched here and then it's rounded up top and it's super soft and fluffier at the edge, but it's still nicely, it's like a good packer and blender all in one. The ferrule is gold. Their brushes are always really, really nice and weighty, so they feel really solid in the hand, which I really like. And then they have the Precision Eye Smudger. I used the other brush yesterday. I haven't used this one yet. So this one is like a pencil brush, sort of, but it's a bit thicker in diameter than a typical pencil brush, and then it's slightly tapered at the end. And again, you've got the gold ferrule. Also, I do have a code with Make Beauty. It's Becca15. It's 15% off. I don't think it works on new releases, but in case you're watching this at a later point in time, or you want to refer back or shop any of the rest of Make Beauty, you can use that. When I tell you I gasped when I opened these up, they're so stunning. So let me tell you a little bit about the formula. They say this highly pigmented multi-chrome eyeshadow adds luminous color to eyes with a foiled metallic finish. Formulated with special treated micas, reflective pearls, and conditioning lipids that provide a creamy texture for buildable dimensional eye looks. To use, swipe onto eyelids with fingers or brush, blend until desired look is achieved. Okay, I can't wait any longer. Let me swatch these for you and show you the actual formula. I'm gonna do live swatches so you can actually see how they go on like the first dip. I'm going to swatch these from lightest to deepest, not in the order in which they were sent to me. Also, it's a very gloomy, rainy day, so sorry if the lighting is weird. I did my best. Okay, I'm just gonna show you right away how creamy and emollient the formula is. Like, I dip my finger in and it truly behaves and feels almost like a hybrid cream powder shadow. It doesn't have a lot of kick up because there's a lot of emollients in here binding the formula together. It also doesn't really matter. Like, I know this is speckled and there are multi-chromes in here, but It doesn't really matter where you pick up or how much you pick up. It's all gonna look generally the same because once it gets onto your skin, it all sort of melts into one shade. This is the shade Glaze. And that is one dip into the pan. It's so shiny. It truly looks like liquid on the skin. There's no powderiness. It looks very wet looking and glossy and shiny. Then I have the shade Quartz, which is my favorite shade. One thing I will say is that these really slide around the pans because they're just magnetic in the palette itself. I wish it were a little bit stronger of a magnet. That's just like a me thing. This is my favorite shade. This is Quartz with just that one dip into the pan. It's so stunning. Quartz is the most interesting shade to me because it has this warm pink undertone. You can see as I'm blending it out on the edges that the base tone is this like taupey, pinky purple, but the sheen in it, like the pearl itself, is silvery. And what that creates is a very wet looking effect across the skin and a very dimensional look across the skin. Then I'm going to go into Blaze. It's a gorgeous warm bronze. Then I'm going into Purple Haze. Just so silky, liquid, creamy, beautiful. This is Stardust. Oh my God, it's so pretty. Sorry, I have to straighten them out looking at my hand because it's hard to do on camera. Okay, so there is Stardust. Beautiful smoky emerald. And then lastly, I'm going into Onyx. It's a beautiful metallic slate. So those are all of the swatches. They're absolutely stunning, beautiful, reflective, wet looking, and they swatch out like cream eyeshadows. I love the mix here of neutrals and jewel tones as well. You can obviously swatch them or use them to full pigmentation, or you can wear them a little bit more sheer as well. A couple of things about the term multi-chrome here. These are not your indie multi-chromes where you're gonna get like green and blue and yellow and rainbow shifts within each shade. This is not that. This is definitely more for a broader audience. And you know, a multi-chrome can refer to anything where there's a contrast between the base color and the shift in it, like the pigment, the sheen, the sparkle, the pearl, whatever. I think that's why I am the most drawn to Quartz, because of that contrast between the deeper shade and the sheen running through it. The other ones are not as shifty or as much of an illusion, I guess, within each shade. They kind of have more subtle differences, like the bronze one right here, Blaze. You can see there's a very warm coppery bronze with a more golden shift running through it. There are slight differences, but because the contrasts are not radically different colors, you don't get that intense shift and sort of illusion quality when you look at it from different angles. Nevertheless, I think they're absolutely stunning. I wore Glaze, as I mentioned yesterday, without an eyeshadow primer, and I wore it all day long, and I was actually really surprised how well it wore. It was a little bit creasy by the end of the day, but I have very oily eyelids. I have hooded eyelids, so I don't really expect anything to last all day without creasing on me kind of ever, unless it's a powder eyeshadow, and these are so creamy that they're almost like a pressed pigment to me. So without further ado, let me get into the eye swatches. Just for reference, I have my brows done, I have my Haus Labs foundation and a little bit of bronzer and a little bit of a tinted lip balm. I have the LH Cosmetics tinted balm in the shade Pink Opal. It's actually mostly faded off now, but I just wanted something very neutral on the lips. Because I'm gonna do one eyeshadow on each side, I wanna group shades that are kind of similar. So I'm gonna do first Blaze and Purple Haze together. I haven't primed the eyes, again, because I am just gonna put on a swatch and take it off. But I am powdering my eyes down just to give the eyeshadow a matte base. I'm using the new M Cosmetics powder, which, first of all, like the compact is so cute. It's a pressed powder, translucent. It has a slight pink undertone, but it's sheer on, but it's really, really good. It's like very undetectable for a pressed powder. Just wanted to mention that because I also tested this yesterday and it helped my base last all day long, but it didn't feel powdery. Enough of me blabbing, let me go into Blaze. I'm gonna pick it up with my finger. I will use the brushes to blend out, but this is how I would naturally go for a shadow like this, so that's what I'm gonna do. Here we go with Blaze. I mean, it looks like liquid foil. It's so wild. I can feel when it makes contact with my eyelid that the warmth of my skin is kind of melting the product down. It's binding like any of the pearly sheen to the lid. I actually just wiped the rest of the product off my finger because I don't want to over apply, and then I'm going to just blend out with my finger around the edges. One thing I do love about blending out multi-chromes is that the shade starts to look a little bit different than where you initially layer on product, because as the pearl thins out, the base color comes through. So I'm gonna use the blender brush, this one, and show you what I mean. This is a great shape for a one and done shadow, for a brush, I mean. So I'm not touching my eyelid where I applied it. I'm only doing sort of windshield wiper motions to blend out the edge of the eyeshadow. I'm gonna maybe see what it's like to build up color with this, to just tap. You know, when you apply with a brush, you're not gonna get as intense of a color payoff, obviously, but still really beautiful. Do you see what I mean though? As I'm blending upward, it's actually starting to look more like orange. Also, the cool thing is that once the base pigment blends out, the topper micro glitters and like pearls still blend out and stick to your eye too. So you get this really dimensional look. So that's Blaze, one and done eye look. You can see I didn't actually wing it out, but I created a wing shape just because that's what's flattering on me. I have a little bit of Cinema Secrets brush cleaner. It's like a quick brush cleaner. So I'm just going to wipe off my brush, dip a little bit into this, and then wipe off onto a towel. It's what makeup artists use to switch between colors really quickly without fully cleaning your brush. But it does a good job. And then it's dry. Do not use this with your natural bristle brushes though. All right, time for Purple Haze. I'm doing this with my left hand, just so you can see as I'm like applying it. The drama. That's just one swatch. I haven't gone in for seconds. I am like loading up my finger, but still, I can't believe the pigment in these. Again, taking the shader brush and just gonna blend out the edges. Purple is not a shade I wear very often, but I like the undertone of the maroon red in this. They do describe this as a red purple, I think. And I feel like the warmth of it makes it a little bit more complex than say like a royal purple or a blue-based purple. But I do feel like I need to build up the pigmentation on this one to prevent it from looking like a black eye. I feel like you really need to see that it's intentional and that it is in fact an eyeshadow and that it's purple, and to see the metallic, at least on my skin tone, to prevent this from looking like a black eye. I do think the smudger brush that I'm using is working better to keep more focused pigment where I want it versus having it go like out of control. So that is Purple Haze, and that is Blaze. You can see Blaze has a lot more contrast between the brightness of the pearl and then the depth of the pigment, whereas Purple Haze doesn't have quite as much contrast, so it doesn't look quite as shiny. I'm not finishing off these looks with mascara and eyeliner, but I do think these are two shades that would call for a smoky eyeliner and a lot of mascara, just because they are a little bit more dramatic and it would help finish off the eye look, obviously. But I'm not gonna do that, I'm moving on to the next shades. All right, back for the next round. By the way, this is what I'm using just to prep my eyes. I'm using concealer to blank out the eyes and then the Cosmetics powder. Okay, for the next round, I'm gonna go in for Stardust and Onyx, and I'm gonna do sort of smokier eyes with these. I might do like a smoky liner, we'll see. I'm gonna go in with Stardust first. One thing that I'm wondering about with these two is that they both have a very dark base, like a black base. And I'm wondering if they are going to look very similar on the eyes or whether this emerald of Stardust is bright enough to pop. I know that there's also an olive shade in this range. I'm sad they didn't send it to me, but I might actually pick that one up because I love a grungy olive eyeshadow. Would love to compare that with this, but I don't have this one, or I don't have that one now. So I'm gonna go in with this smudger brush. I'm going to pick up the product. Maybe for this one, I'm gonna start with like a smoky liner. See if it works that way. You guys know I really like a colorful eyeliner look, just for like a statement pop of color. Okay, so I have hooded eyes because this formula is so creamy. When I open my eyes fully and then when I blink, I do get transfer on my lid right in that fold. It's not a big deal because my eyes are hooded, so you don't really see it, but it's more when I close my eyes, you can see where that transfer is happening because of the creamy formula. One way to avoid that is actually to use that line of demarcation as a kind of guide and fill in your eyeshadow across your lid up to that line. And then I wiped off the brush. I'm gonna use the edge to clean up to make a little baby wing like that. I like this as a liner option. I will say applied with a brush, it just kind of looks gray. I feel like you need to pick up a lot of pigment in a really saturated way to see that emerald shine come through. So I'm actually gonna build up with my finger. See what I mean? Like that looks green now, that not so much. You need that real saturation to see the pigment. And then I'm gonna take an angled brush, this is from Thrive Cosmetics, to build up pigment on the wing. And then it helps to relax the eye, look straight ahead, and then finish off the shape of the wing. I'm actually so into that. I'm kind of sad I didn't do this as the last look because I really love it. Even though it's a subtler emerald green, I do see the pop of color. For this side, let me start out maybe just with fingers too. Maybe it'll turn into a wing. I'm not sure yet. I have to see it on the eyes. Ooh. Wait, I really like that. I never like charcoal grays, but this has almost a blue undertone to it with a silver reflect. Should I do the same thing? I'm gonna do the same thing. Gonna use the line right here when I open my eye as a guide. I'm actually really happy that when it's built up, you can see the difference between the two shades. Sometimes, again, when it's like a really smoky shade, sometimes they can all look the same, especially on my skin tone, because I have like olive undertones and not cool undertones. They can kind of clash and look funny, but that's not happening here. The wing is getting longer and longer. It's just happening. These are not the same wings at all, that's okay. Obviously, if I were keeping this look, I would even out the shapes, I would even out the colors, but I think for the purposes of demo and the question of whether these two shades look really similar, I think they actually look really different, especially in person as the light is hitting them. They look really different in the way that they reflect back light. So here is Stardust. And here is Onyx. This would look way cooler with a ton of eyeliner, a lot of mascara, but once again, I'm going to remove these for the next two eyeshadows. Lastly, I'm going to apply Glaze and Quartz. These are the two shades that people responded to the most in my stories, that it seems like there's a lot of excitement about, and they're also the most quote unquote like wearable shades. Whatever that means, you can wear any shade, but they are, I think, the easiest shade to wear, let's say that, in terms of just like everyday eye looks. I'm gonna go in with Quartz first because I just love this shade so much. I have worked with this shade before, like I mentioned, so I'm just gonna pick some up with a finger and just watch. It's so satisfying, it's so beautiful. I mean, that's just like opaque color with one swipe. Taking the blender brush and just working around the edges. Okay, the interesting thing about this shade is when I blend out the edges, it looks so much more pink, interestingly, at least on my skin tone. Things do tend to look cooler on my skin tone because, like I mentioned, I have olive undertones. So anything that's already cool toned looks even more cool toned. It's just how my skin tone works. And you can see the shine blends out and it just creates a really glossy look on the eyes. Ooh, I'm starting to get some irritation and like bumps because I've removed makeup too much. Where I apply it with my fingers, there's a lot more silver, so you can see a lot more reflect and it looks a lot cooler toned. If I actually apply this in a sheer layer, it looks warmer than when I build it up because that reflect is cooler toned. I think this is one of the shades where I actually don't even really need a brush. The blend is so even and forgiving that it's just a very easy one and done eyeshadow. It's obviously like got a bit more to it than just your classic bronze or classic taupe because of that silver reflect. It's so interesting, but it's still very wearable, right? Like I wore this during the day yesterday and I didn't feel like too dressy. I didn't feel like I was trying too hard. I actually got stopped by someone in a restaurant who complimented my makeup. So it is eye-catching, but it's still neutral enough to wear every day. That was also the quickest one to blend out, just FYI, so far. In terms of glaze, I actually haven't worn this one yet. I'm really excited to. I'm gonna do a similar application just with a finger. I mean, wow, so pretty. Glaze is like a pink champagne almost. There's a peachiness to it. I mean, it's icy in that it's a very bright reflect, but it's not a cool toned champagne. There's a peachiness and a bit of warmth coming through. This is the kind of shade that I can sheer out like almost all the way to the brow bone, but it just like opens up the whole eye. It gives you a lot of brightness. This would also be a great inner corner highlight, a brow bone highlight if you're into that, or just like right across the lid to really open up and brighten the eyes. Also a beautiful one and done eyeshadow. So here is Quartz. And here's Glaze. All right, I'm going to switch over to Quartz just because it is my favorite shade. I'm gonna put on some mascara, finish off the makeup, and let me give you my final thoughts. I'm back to close things out. I just finished off with some mascara, and then for lips, I used a combo of the Exa lip liner in Bare Your Soul. It's just like a light pink liner. And then these New Summer Fridays lip oil in soft mauve. I just recently reviewed these and swatched all of them. I just thought it went with the eye look nicely. I did want to share just one quick tip. If you struggle with wearing cool tones like this, something that I often do and that I'll do right now to show you is I take a bronzer, whatever bronzer I've used that day. This is the Chantecaille bronzer in Serena. It's their real bronze. And then I just take a fluffy brush. This is the BK Beauty 212. And I actually just work that ever so slightly through like the contour crease area. Wherever your brow bone is, I kind of run just below it. And it's a very subtle thing. A lot of makeup artists do this. And what this does is it actually warms up the coolness of the cool tone shadow. And it very, very subtly, let me tuck my hair back, will tie the eye look back into the rest of your makeup. It's not even something you're really gonna notice, but it helps the makeup look more cohesive overall. It's kind of like painting, kind of just like creating a visual harmony of all of the things that you use on your face. And of course, a bronzer is warmer, so it will kind of ground the cooler tone of an eyeshadow like quartz. So let me give you my final thoughts. If you can't tell, I obviously really like these. I love the creaminess of the formula. It's so emollient, so smooth, so liquid as it swatches. As for the shades, I can already tell you quartz is going to be my most worn shade, followed by Gleam if you want a kind of more iridescent, sheer, bright sort of look, or if you want an inner corner pop, or if you want just that really gleaming mobile lid, that's what I would use this for. I am interested in some of the other shades like that olive that I mentioned. I think there are some more like bronzy, champagne-y sort of shades that I'm curious about. As for the deeper shades, I think the shade that I would use the most is probably Stardust, just because I really like a smoky teal green for a statement look. And I actually really liked the wing that I created with it, and I think it would last. My least favorite shade of the range is probably Purple Haze. Not because it's a bad shade, it's just not a shade I tend to reach for the most. So that's kind of my take on the shade range. I would like to see more neutral shades, so I'm curious what the other shades will look like once they're swatched on the skin, just because something I have noticed is that because of the multi-chrome quality of these, they don't always look on the eyes the way they're going to look in the pan. And of course, Make Beauty never shies away from color. I mean, I don't know if you guys remember their lipstick launches. They launched a blue lipstick, a black lipstick. Their eyeliner range is incredible. If you like colorful eyeliners or statement eyeliners, I've swatched those all before too. They would be an amazing pairing with this. I should do that actually. Not in this video, but I will at some point. One thing that I was expecting to see that I didn't see so much is the use of glitter. These are pretty much all foiled formulas, so they're like foiled metallics. They look really smooth and liquid across the eyes. And some of them have a little bit more of like a micro, not even a micro glitter, like a pearlier sheen. But I would love to see this formula with like micro glitters, some slightly more textured, interesting finishes. So I would love to see that in the future. As for the brushes, I'm like, do you need to go out and buy these? Am I like, you need the Make Beauty eye brushes? Not necessarily, but they both performed really beautifully. And if you want kind of an elevated basic, these are great workhorse shapes. Your smudger to build pigment, your blender to both blend and shade, actually, like to build pigment and blend out with the edge. They are really beautiful and they're really nice to look at. They feel weighty in the hand. But you know, they're brushes. They're really good brushes, and that's it. The really special thing, obviously, is the eyeshadow release. I think that's it for me. Of course, now it's getting light out as I'm done filming, of course. If you have any questions for me about these shadows, anything I didn't cover, let me know in the comments and I'll meet you there. And I'll also link my other Make Beauty videos if you're curious to check out more of the brand. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!